Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Sunday Zoom session. Thank you for joining us. I would ask you to remain muted as we're gathered here in the large group. Those of you who have a role, I think you know what to do and when to unmute. But when we move into our small groups later in our program this morning, I certainly encourage you to unmute because that's when you'll be interacting with others. Use the chat box if you need to message me as the meeting organizer or anyone or all of us if there's something that you need to say. So, welcome to St. Charles Church this Sunday morning. Today we seek to integrate our worship with important learning about racial justice. This issue has been, as you know, at the forefront of our lives throughout the summer. We are called individually and as a community to address racial injustice wherever it happens. As persons of faith, we are called to recognize the presence of God in each and every person we encounter. And so today we come together to pray and learn and grow. But first, we need to, before we get into our planned program, we need to acknowledge a couple of extraordinary events that have occurred in recent days, as you are fully aware. And so the best way to acknowledge those things at the moment, I think, is to, if I would just ask you to join me in prayer. Join me in prayer for all those affected by the devastating fires, those who have lost homes, lost loved ones, lost livestock and pets, those who have been evacuated, those who don't know where to go, those who are ill, those who have to breathe the smoke, and those who are saving lives. Oh God, we trust in your saving mercy. Hear our prayer. And let us pray for all those afflicted by the coronavirus, especially our own Father Schwab and the 8 De La Salle construction workers, that each one of them, each one of you, heal quickly and fully. O God, we trust in your saving mercy. Hear our prayer. And so, Father Schwab, we're of course thrilled that you're with us this morning. And so tell us how you're doing.
I'm doing okay. Last Saturday night, I got feeling a little crappy, took my temperature, I had a fever, not bad, but a fever, it went away after a while. Sunday night again, Monday night again, because of what happened to me a year ago. I decided I better call my doctor and find out what was going on, and for the time, got through talking with them and figure out what tests I needed to take. Then they decided I better smart to go to the emergency room and plug into the heart monitor and get the EKG and the x-rays and the blood tests and all of that sort of stuff, checking on my general health. And then I left there finally after several hours and got home, and then about 6:30 Tuesday night, I got a call from the emergency room saying most of the tests are in now and they're fine. Some are still in process, but you've got COVID. So I've been in isolation for the week. Most days I get a fever for a while and the doctor tells me just take Tylenol, it'll go away. I feel pretty crappy. Not serious. Thank God I'm not having the terrible things that some people have suffered from the disease. It's just that I feel crappy and tired. I sit down after doing almost nothing. I sit down and I fall asleep. I'm just exhausted. So anyway, my temperature is down today. I don't have any temperature at all, 98.4. So anyway, I'm plugging along. As you well know, I'm super covered, and really appreciate all your offers of help. And I've got plenty of food. One of my nieces is director of the Meridian Park Hospital emergency room. So I got the best medical advice in my ear because my sister is always telling her to call me. So I'm very well covered, and I really appreciate that. And thank you for all you've offered. Appreciate it. That's all I got to say at the moment. Thanks.
Oh, Al, thank you. Thank you for joining us. And I'm happy to hear that that you're not worse, I guess. So our prayers will certainly continue. Thank you. And I know you can't see people on screen, but I'm seeing a lot of nodding of heads and so forth. So and thumbs up, and all of us are with you. So okay, let me go to our slides. Let me just say this. It won't be, our session today won't be a typical Sunday Zoom service that we've grown accustomed to over the summer. And it won't be a typical gift session that you may remember from past years. But through our work with the racial justice team, the gift team, the liturgy committee, today's gathering will be a meld, an integration of our worship and learning of gift and liturgy. And we'll be together until around 11:30 or so a little bit longer than what we're accustomed to. So I ask you to just take a moment now to pause, collect yourselves, and when Kent and Tom are ready, we can move right into our song.
As the flame of faith is carried, as the torch of faith is passed, reaching across the generations, each receiving from the last. So the promise to God's people is received then handed down in the light of our baptism through our families. Faith is found.
As the seasons spin and follow, as our stories long endure, like an ever-flowing river, so the covenant is pure. In our span of earthly living, as the great or as the least, still we find in book and table Christ the Word and Christ the feast.
May we learn to tell the story, keep the flame of faith ablaze. May we strive to keep the gospel as the center of our days. As we keep the faithful spirit brightly burning, lifted high, may each generation follow with Christ like to journey by.
Today, we seek to begin a conversation on how to recognize racism and how to seek racial justice in the various aspects of our lives, individually, at home, at church, in the community, and in the broader society. So we want to invite you to get into this a little bit, to be primed, if you will. And so want to share with you a video titled Note to Self by Congressman John Lewis.
Young John Lewis, you're so full of passion. In your lifetime, you will be arrested 45 times in your mission to help redeem the soul of America. In 1956, when you were only 16 years old, you and some of your brothers and sisters and first cousins went down to the public library, trying to get library cards, trying to check out some books. And you were told by the librarian that the library was for whites only, not for colors. I said to you now, when you see something that is not right, not fair, not just, you have a moral obligation to continue to speak up, to speak out. You became so inspired by Dr. King and Rosa Parks that you got involved in the civil rights movement. Something touched you, and suggested that you write a letter to Dr. King. You didn't tell your teachers, you didn't tell your mother and your father. Dr. King wrote you back and invited you to come to Montgomery. In the meantime, you have been admitted to a little school in Nashville, Tennessee. And it was there that you got involved in the sit-ins. You would be sitting there in an orderly, peaceful, nonviolent fashion, and someone would come up and spit on you, or put a lighted cigarette down your back, pour hot water, hot coffee, hot chocolate on you. You got arrested the first time, and you felt so free. You felt liberated. You felt like you had crossed over.
Free at last! Free at last! Thank God Almighty! We are free at last!
You probably will never believe it, but the boy from Troy, as Dr. King used to call you, will become the embodiment of nonviolence in America.
We must say, wake up, America, wake up, for we cannot stop, and we will not and cannot be patient.
2 years after you speak at the March on Washington, you will see the face of death leading the march for voting across the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma.
We're marching today from Selma to Montgomery. We're marching to our state capital to dramatize to our nation and to the world our determination to win first class citizenship.
Troopers here, advance toward the group.
You were beaten on that bridge. You were left bloody. You thought you were going to die. But you would make it. You would live to see your mother and father cast their first votes.
The change we need doesn't come from Washington. Change comes to Washington.
As it is to send a message down through the ages That man will be nominated on the 45th anniversary of the March on Washington. And all of those signs that you saw as a little child that said white men, white women, colored women, those signs are gone. And the only places you will see those signs today will be in a book, in a museum, on a video. John, thank you for going to the library with your brothers, your sisters, and cousins. You were denied a library card. You were sad. But one day, you've been elected to the Congress. You wrote a book called Walking with the Wind. And the same library invited you to come back for a book signing where blacks and white citizens showed up. And after the book signing, they gave you a library card. And believe, as Dr. King and A. Philip Randolph and others taught you, that we're one people. And it doesn't matter whether we're black or white, Latino, Asian American, or Native American. That maybe our foremothers and our forefathers all came here in different ships, but we're all in the same boat now. John, you understood the words of Dr. King when he said we must learn to live together as brothers and sisters. If not, we will perish as fools.
So at this moment, I invite you to take a few minutes, just a few minutes, to reflect. And we encourage you to journal around probably just one of these questions, but I'll put them all up. Recall a time when you experienced or witnessed racism. How did it impact you? What do you think are your hidden racist tendencies? Do you have relationships with people of color? What does that mean to you? How do you see racism affecting your neighborhood, your church, elsewhere? If someone asked you, what is systemic racism? How would you respond? So take just 5 minutes or so. That's not enough time, of course, but just to get into this a little bit, choose one of those questions, reflect, write. You won't be asked to share at this point, so this is just for you, but take some time to get into it. Just another 30 seconds or so for your reflection. All right, let's move into our responsorial psalm.
The Lord is kind and merciful. Merciful is the Lord. The Lord is kind and merciful. Merciful is the Lord. Bless the Lord, O my soul, and all my being. Bless his holy name. Bless the Lord, O my soul. Forget not all his benefits.
The Lord is kind and merciful. Merciful is the Lord. He pardons all your iniquities. He heals all your ills. He redeems your life from destruction and crowns you with kindness and compassion.
The Lord is kind and merciful. Merciful is the Lord. The Lord secures justice and the rights of all the oppressed. He has made known his ways to Moses and his deeds to the children of Israel.
The Lord is kind and merciful. Merciful is the Lord.
Hallelujah. 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 Hallelujah.
Let your heart rejoice in the Lord. Let your words proclaim his deeds. Let your voice sing out to the world that our God has come to save.
Hallelujah.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Peter approached Jesus and asked him, "Lord, if my sister or brother sins against me, how often must I forgive? As many as 7 times?" Jesus answered, "I say to you, not 7 times, but 77 times. That is why the kingdom of heaven may be likened to a king who decided to settle accounts with his servants. When he began the accounting, a debtor was brought before him who owed him a huge amount. Since he had no way of paying it back, his master ordered him to be sold along with his wife, his children, and all his property in payment of the debt. At that, the servant fell down, did him homage, and said, 'Be patient with me. I will pay you back in full.' Moved with compassion, the master of that servant let him go and forgave him the loan. When that servant had left, he found one of his fellow servants who owed him as a much smaller amount. He seized him and started to choke him, demanding, 'Pay back what you owe.' Falling to his knees, his fellow servant begged him, 'Be patient with me, and I will pay you back.' But he refused. Instead, he had the fellow servant put in prison until he paid back the debt. Now, when his fellow servants saw what had happened, they were deeply disturbed and went to their master and reported the whole affair. His master summoned him and said to him, 'You wicked servant, I forgave you your entire debt because you begged me to. Should you not have had pity on your fellow servant as I had pity on you?' Then in anger, his master handed him over to the torturers until he should pay back the whole debt. So will my heavenly Father do to you, unless each of you forgives your sister and brother from your heart." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. Instead of a traditional homily, we're going to have a conversation. So I'm going to turn it back over to Candace and Truls.
Candace? Well, let me set this up. You there?
Go ahead, Charles.
Okay, sorry, I didn't see you. Well, those of us in the Racial Justice Committee, one of the things we talked about was story and the power of story and how important it is to hear each other's stories. And we were also inspired by a YouTube series that's going on called Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man. And we thought, we need to share stories. So this whole segment is about sharing story, a little bit about my story as a Black parishioner here at St. Charles. And
yeah.
Kim, you want to add something to that?
No, I don't. I think that you're completely right about that, and I just have to say thank you for allowing me to discuss this with you. But why don't you kick it off, because I'm having trouble pulling up my screen of the questions we're gonna be asked.
Okay, I can read them. So the way this was gonna go, the question was asking me, what is my experience being a Black person living in Portland? I lived in Portland for close to 28 years. I grew up in, well, all over, but mainly Southern California. And I have to say, as a Black person in Portland, it's been mostly good. I think Portland, the way I describe Portland to my friends, is that Portland is a lot like everywhere else. We deal with prejudice and racism like you do all over the country. But in Portland, one of the differences I experience is a lot of white people who would lack experience with people of color. Why? Because there's not a lot of people of color here.
Yeah.
So I think that that's something that's different. And then the racism is more subtle. The prejudice is more subtle. It isn't blatant like you would see, quote, in the South with people calling people names, racial names.
Yeah.
Street. But a couple of examples I made note of. One is I got a really ugly pair of swimsuit from some friends of Robin's, and they had they were brand new, had a tag on them, never tried them on. Took them back to the shop that it was allegedly bought at, and I was told by the store proprietor, "Oh no, we can't take that back without a receipt." I go, "Really?" I go, "You're not even worn. I don't even want my money back. I just want something I want to wear. I don't want to wear these ugly things." And I said, "Nope." A couple of days later, my white wife, Robin, went and they were exchanged without question. And I was just like, I couldn't believe it. It's like, really? And then when my brother moved here, I have a twin brother, Per. When he moved here, we went apartment hunting, and we were down in the Broadway, Irvington area looking at apartments. And we came across a sign, a yard sign that said a 1-bedroom apartment for rent. We knocked on the manager's door and we're told, "Oh, that's already rented."
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. And I have countless things like that that have happened to me. And sometimes I think, well, was that prejudice or racism, or is that just really somebody just not, doing it for whatever reason? But it happens so often that it makes me question. I tell Robin often, I'll be standing in a line at a grocery store, and the first couple of people ahead of me the cashier will be talking to him, bantering, saying hello, how are you, that kind of stuff. It'll come to me, I think I'm a nice guy.
Yeah.
And I get dead silence, and I'm like, wow. Or, kind of a standoffishness. So that's been some of my experience living in Portland, of dealing with that kind of thing. And the next question, do you have the questions yet, Candace?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Like, this is a difficult situation. Like, I can't pull out my Outlook. But
well, we can punt. So the next question, okay. In what ways does being Black impact your personal life and your professional life?
Yeah.
I would say that in my personal life, I've had to make choices to make sure I have people of color in my life and in the lives of my family.
And when you say persons of color, like, do you include white persons too? Like,
I think because white people are not difficult to find in Portland or in Oregon. What I'm talking about is people of color, i.e. Latinx, African-American, people from other countries. That's what I mean. And that's, for me, that was important to have my family exposed to that, my kids to grow up around that. So when we moved 28 years ago, it was really important to choose a place. In fact, I worked for Clackamas County Parole and Probation, and I was told by my managers when I first started working, I said, well, you don't want to live in North or Northeast Portland. Now, you all know what North and Northeast Portland was like 28 years ago.
Yeah.
It didn't have the gentrification. It didn't have all the nice, Kennedy School was closed. There was no New Seasons. It was a closed down Thriftway. Alberta was pretty much just bars and whatnot. So, but we chose to live here because we wanted our kids to grow up in a diverse community and experience people of color. So for me, it's a lot of it has, in my personal life, it's about making choices so I'm not the only one, I'll put it that way. And then even choosing St. Charles was a choice in part for diversity. One of the things I was so impressed with St. Charles was the diversity of people that attended and the welcomingness to people that were different. And that was something that I value, and it's a reason that attracted me to St. Charles. And also, I think in my personal life, some on the negative side, sometimes I've had to deal with people, white friends, who may not acknowledge my experience as a person of color, you know, who tell me you're just being sensitive, or, you know, you don't, what happened to your brother in that apartment, that happens to everybody, not just because you're Black. Kind of denying my experience. One of the things Candace and I talked about, how that denial of experience, it's kind of like a man telling a woman they're not experiencing sexism or things of that nature. As a man, I can't understand what it's like to be a woman and have to deal with sexist behavior. And I think as a person of color, I think it's hurtful for me when people deny my experience or don't acknowledge that what I'm experiencing is real. So personally, that's been challenging, and it's actually closed some doors on some relationships with people who aren't able to empathize.
Oh my God. Listen, so the new plan is that you have to pick up 17 from John.
Okay.
It's a terminology.
What?
Terminology.
Okay.
Yeah, so complicated.
It's been a challenge because often I've been the only person of color at my job. I was the first Black probation officer hired in Clackamas County a few years ago, or promoted to a probation officer. And as I moved up the ranks and got into executive management, I often found myself as the only person of color at the table. And that was challenging. It was challenging some because some people didn't think I belonged there, felt like I was there because of affirmative action or because I was a racial hire or whatever. And then also having this feeling of trying to have to defend Black people or represent Black people to people. One of the things that people who know me know that I hate being late. And part of that is because my dad made this impression on me. He says, don't be late. White people think Black people are always late, so you don't want to be late. So that was me changing my own behavior because I didn't want white people to think less of Black people because of me. So that's a burden I carried into the workplace. And I felt like I was always watching myself, kind of like a third eye, watching to make sure that I'm doing things, the right way and not doing something that can be criticized. So that has been challenging.
Mm-hmm. So I don't have the questions like at my hand, but how has this developed in the church, like of your spiritual experience? Because I know that you're really spiritual, and you and Robin are, and how has this helped you?
Well, I think God calls us to be united in Christ, and I believe I really like the gospel reading because I think a lot of what's missing in our world is grace and forgiveness. That God calls us to give grace and forgiveness. I think about the Black church that was I forget the city, but you all know what I'm talking about. Dylan shot up the Black church, and that church had the power and the strength. The people, not everyone, but what was powerful was the grace and forgiveness that was coming from the people who were harmed. And I think that's what God calls me to, is grace. I use this term, we talk about race relations. I say, well, as a Christian, I have to be about grace relations.
Yeah.
Even though some of the stories I tell you about people who may have offended me or I felt racism from or prejudice, I still feel God calls me to love them. I feel God calls me to give them grace. Doesn't mean I tolerate their behavior or use it. I'm not saying that. But I do think that's what makes me different. Not me different, but what makes me different as a Christian. And it's why, like I said about St. Charles, for me, St. Charles is a place where we have so much diversity. We have challenges because of it. Of course we do, because we're people. But I do think God calls us to work on that together, to not quit. As I told Candace, I said, it's kind of like living in the United States. You know, it's not perfect. We got our issues, but I wouldn't want to live anywhere else. And I feel like the church is that way. The church has its problems. I don't agree with everything. I'm talking about the bigger church, as you know. But this is where I think God has me to be, and I think to work out these issues.
Well, great. I'll give it back to Leif now. I think that you've said the majority of what we've discussed. So, but
so Leif, did you want me to continue, or do we have much time?
I would love for you to continue.
Okay, I gotta.
Okay, cool.
One of the questions was, do you ever feel different in a group setting because of your race or ethnicity, and how did this affect you? And I said, yes, mainly because of the lack, as I mentioned, when you don't have a lot of people of color, especially in Portland, you feel like you really stand out. Again, I use the analogy of if you're a woman and if you're the only woman in a group of men, you really notice that you're the only one. Sometimes I'll be walking down the street and I'll see another black person, I'll nod or wave, and one of my friends will say, "Oh, do you know that person?" I'll go, "No." I go, "Well, what's that about?" Well, one of the ways I explain that, if you ever go to another country, and I have, where you don't see anybody from the United States for a week or two, and then finally you hear somebody in a coffee shop, overhear them talking, "Oh, that's those people from the United States." First thing you want to do is run up to go, "Hi, I'm from there too." It's just something that we all do, that we want to be connected to people that are like us in those kinds of ways. So that has been my experience. And I talked about work already.
But Charles, like, I want you to identify with the fact that you talked to me about being a woman and being different and how that is meaningful, and so.
Yes, and you're right, Candace. It's about understanding that I can't ever completely, I can empathize with how women experience the world, but I can never completely understand it because I'm not traveling through the world that way. And I think that relates to race as well. There's one of the last questions that we had was, have you witnessed someone being treated unfairly because of their race or ethnicity? And yeah. I've seen it a lot. And a couple of situations, just a couple examples I would want to give is, I profoundly remember a black woman, her name was Sharon, I won't mention her last name. She had 4 small children and she was houseless. I became friends with her at a homeless center that served dinner to people who were houseless. She called me one night, she had my phone number, she called me one night at 2 a.m. Saying she'd been evicted. And this black woman and her 4 kids needed somewhere to stay. And I said, okay, hey, she told me where she was in which part of town. I said, hey, she talked about a hotel or motel, and I said, okay, I'll call the hotel, I'll give my credit card, I'll make a reservation so you have a place to stay tonight, and then we'll figure out things tomorrow. Called the hotel, gave my credit card information, did what I said I'd do. The hotel person said, yeah, fine. Went back to bed thinking, okay, this is done. About an hour and a half later, get a call back from Sharon. They won't take me. What? They wouldn't take her. I called the hotel back, and the guy acted like he didn't know, like we'd never had a conversation. I was so frustrated because I knew this was happening to her because she was a poor black woman. And it was just infuriating. And then more recently, I was with my daughter. We were at a Subway here in the neighborhood, and there was a person of color, a black person who I believe was from an African country, who was trying to make an order at the Subway. And the the person helping him, a white person was helping him, was picking on his inability to speak English by kind of picking on how he said things, or you said yes, no, you didn't say, you said no, you didn't want a tomato, but now you're saying you want one. And you could tell it was really just kind of picking at him and agitating him. And I just had to say something. I said, I know what you're doing, dude. Stop it. This is wrong. You cannot do this to this person. And he kind of go, what? And he kind of backed up a little bit. But what warmed my heart was when the person was leaving, he says, yes, you cannot do that to me, and walked out. But I was, it bothered me. It also bothered me. My daughter had to see something like that happen to another person of color. So the last question is, how can St. Charles grow as a parish in recognizing a person's multicultural identity while being respectful of a culture, of a culture need to socialize amongst each other?
Yeah, I'm sorry it wasn't the best described question, but
So Candace and I talked about the challenges St. Charles has with diversity. And she asked me my opinion, and my opinion is, I think St. Charles is we are really good at being friendly and inviting to people. I think where we struggle is we have old ways of doing things that were done by wonderful people, but those people aren't here anymore. We have a new group of people that are here, new communities of color and people who don't exactly relate to the way we've done things in the past. Again, I'm not saying that things we've done in the past are bad, or that's not the point. The point is, I think we have to look at, it's kind of like putting, as the Bible talks about, putting old wine or new wine into old wineskins. How do we look at ourselves to do things in a way that relate to all people? Now, that sounds simple for me to say. That's a huge lift. But I think that's what's ahead of us as a parish, is to look at how do we do this together. And I know there's places where that's happening, like with the Multicultural Committee, and where people are trying to do that work. But I think as we move forward and we try to bring people into the parish and share leadership, I think we have to look at doing things in ways that people identify with themselves.
yeah, so. Yeah, and I agree. But I'm only one person, so I need everyone's help, and Charles has been amazing for that. So.
And Candace, you've done a wonderful job pulling together some resources on our website. That's one of the things we wanted you guys to pay attention to, is the resources she's gathered. We've helped her, but she's been our leader. So thank you, Candace.
Thank you. Okay, Leaf.
Thanks to you both for this fascinating insights. And what's going through my mind right now is what Truls was just talking about, in terms of taking a look at how the parish can pivot in recognizing the work and the ministry that we do needs to be to the people who are in front of us. And there is that temptation to do the work and ministry to our perception of what the parish used to be or what it ought to be. That's tempting, because sometimes that's more comfortable than what's in front of us. Just ever so briefly, I want to recall a conversation that we had last Tuesday night at the Pastoral Council meeting. Was definitely along these lines, and recognizing that we needed better multicultural representation on the council, and yet that conversation evolved into a discussion of, well, is something like a parish pastoral council as a leadership body in the parish, does that resonate with our people of color? It's a comfortable construct for us white people, and we always want to get people of color to meld into that construct. but maybe the construct itself needs to be, at least needs to be questioned. It was a fascinating conversation, and I'm sure that we'll take it further. What I'd like to do is invite you all into some small group conversation, and to cook on some of these very same questions. I'm showing the questions here on this slide. But as soon as I put you into small groups, that's going to disappear. And I think I have a way of putting these questions into a note to you while you're in your small group. But just take a look in case those don't come through. There's 5 small groups, and in each small group, we have a person from our team and a person of color, a guest who has been willing to share their experience to one of these questions to start off the conversation. I have spent a little bit of time this morning creating the groups. I just made sure that the person, our guest person of color, and the team person are matched up in the group. The rest of you are grouped by random. I did not, you could blame Zoom, don't blame me for who you end up with, okay? So, we envision, well, let's see, it's straight up 11 o'clock right now. So we envision a conversation of around 15 minutes or so in your group. And so I'm gonna press the button now that should send you into your small groups. I'm going to stop the share screen first just to make sure. So enjoy your conversations. I may try to get around to each group. I may not get there, and you'll get the 60-second warning when your time is wrapping up. Okay, I'm seeing in the main room here, we still have Miley and Gloria and Barbara Fritz, and it could be for some reason you didn't get grouped. And I apologize for that. Miley, did you get something on your screen that said invite you to a group?
No.
No. I was afraid of that. Well, I apologize. Let's be a group. Gloria, can you unmute yourself and say hi? And Barbara Fritz, I'm gonna unmute you. And Ann Foley is here. So, hey, well,
good morning.
Hang on just a second. I'm going to broadcast a message to the groups that has the questions. Oh, it doesn't let me. Darn. Hang on. I'm just gonna. Miley, Barbara, what did you hear that intrigued you? Or what has been your own experience with respect to racial injustice?
Well, a lot what Truls said resonated with me, except for, I guess mine was a little bit different because I grew up in a very immersed into Latino culture and with a community that was diverse. And I wasn't entirely accepted in them. I was because I was Mr. Fernando's daughter, but if I wasn't Latina enough, and I would have been considered, you know, you're more of a white culture because my mom's white, and you can tell it's different. And then when I'm with white people, of course, they're like, what even are you? But a lot of my life, everything I just got so used to. And then when I went to St. Mary's Academy, I realized, oh, that's not normal. And yeah, racism and is so subtle here. It's like really like micro racism, right? Microaggressions, micro everything. It's like
about that. What does that mean?
A micro aggressions, or
yeah, you say it's so subtle.
Oh yeah, I think what Truls said was that because people don't see diversity normally, then it's just like they don't fully understand what to do with you, even though they don't get it. It's like, well, yes, I've gotten, you know, a pretty racist comments and other things like that, but it usually doesn't take that form. It takes the form of something so small that you just get treated differently, and then it gets in your head.
Yeah.
And then of course I realized it wasn't normal because I've been an observer my whole life. You know, I see the difference between my dad and my mom. I would go to the stores with my mom, and they would be like, oh yeah, it's okay, like if you forgot something or whatever, I'll hold your place. But with my dad, it's like nothing. And every single time they're looking at you, checking on you, expecting the worst from you, and then catching you on it when there's nothing to even look at. And it's really interesting, I think, now, because I can analyze it and I can look at it and look back in my life. And I've really learned a language that has no words. And I couldn't put words to it for the longest time until I went to St. Mary's. And it's at St. Mary's Academy, the majority is white. Right. And I was able to see exactly what it was I was trying to identify right before me. When before I was just, you know, at the side of my mom and dad, seeing the world through their eyes, but then trying to find my own voice in it. Yeah. And of course it was very different because I am a woman. And a lot of things you have to question is like, are they saying these things because I'm a brown woman, or because I'm a beautiful woman, or because I am a kind of like, there are just so many different categories that people will say things that are just so random, like, why are you saying that to me, kind of thing. But yeah, what Truel said was that a lot of these racist things or bias or anything like that is so subtle that it gets so normal for your life that it's just the norm, and you don't realize it is different than any other person or any white person, but it is. And my life was going to look very different from a Black man than a white man too. It's going to be,
sure.
It's just, Portland is not diverse, and I live in the most diverse part, but even then it's slowly fading away as time goes on because of gentrification and all those things. But yeah, I think, I don't know, I think this was part of what I'm saying right now is just in response to what Truls was saying that he brought up, and what my response is to that. And a lot of it is going to be different because I am a woman, and in this culture, my facial features or the way I look does consider to be beautiful, and I'm skinny and all of these other things that, and mainstream says that, oh, this is the way you want to look. And I have some of those qualifications, I guess. I mean, I don't know, but it's very different than I would be like they don't say it because I'm brown like they would a white woman, like they have to my mom in her past. And of course that's a different time period too, but it's just, we all experience things so differently, yet we all have these things in common where it happens to us and we don't understand. And then at one point in our life, it all just, or the words come to our mouth, and it just is so clear about why that happened. And it's because people don't understand what to do with differences and, you know, differentialities of culture and looks and it's something yeah, sorry, what?
That's okay. But I think I would like to hear if there are thoughts from others in the group too. What you're describing is fascinating to me, and I'd love to probe. But let Barbara or George or Gabby, I'm wondering what's going through your minds.
I have a really profound experience from St. Charles. Is my voice coming through?
Yes, Barbara, we're hearing you just fine.
Okay. When Father McGran was pastor, Alice and I began our parish nurse ministry, and we at that time decided we needed a place for people to come to see us. And it ended up, the choice was the bride's room. There was a room off of the bathroom, and that gave us running water if we needed it. So that was going to be where we were going to headquarter. And Father McGran decided that the bathroom needed to be cleaned before we could use it. And so he enlisted a good friend of ours, Liz Jenkins, who was Black, and he said, you go in and clean that bathroom for those girls. And the way he treated her while she did that made me feel like he was making her a saint right before our eyes. He was so abusive, and we didn't know if we should jump in and help her, if we should honor the authority of the pastor who was directing this abuse. It was horrible. It was a scarring to us, and she's never returned to St. Charles. Right. It's just horrible.
Oh, that's a sad story, Barbara.
Yeah.
Hey, Gabby. Hey, George. I don't know if you're just joining us looking for the Spanish version of our liturgy, but today is a little bit different because we are doing a session on racial justice that was originally designed to be interpreted into Spanish, but we ran into technical issues there. So right now, everyone is off in small groups. There's about 60 people in different small groups. This is the main room where you landed, and so you picked up on some of the conversation. So if you'd be welcome to chime in if you wish on your own experience of witnessing racial injustice or being involved in activities that work toward racial justice, or your experience at St. Charles in particular. So that's kind of what we're talking about.
Yeah, good morning. Thanks, Leaf. Yeah, I knew we had guests today. I was a little late, sorry.
Okay.
Not a little, a lot late.
No problem. No problem.
I landed in this room then. Yeah, no, I'm really happy to have this conversation. I think it's really important for our community. And I have to say that I joined the church just a while back, not too long ago. And I think in general, we have a really welcoming, multicultural church, and the community is very welcoming and appreciative of all the cultures that are part of the community and all of that. I think that the situation we are living right now is helping everybody to realize more all the biases, the implicit biases that we have, because we can't say that we don't have any racial biases. I think that that's a really important reflection for everybody, for all of us to realize, like, where are my biases? How do they come out? What do I assume of people, or what do I think of people when I see them just because of their looks, their color of their skin, things like that. So I, as an immigrant, as a Latina woman, I experience that almost every day in Portland. You know, I get often the assumption that I don't speak English, that I'm not a professional, that I'm a stay-home mom, that I'm the nanny of my kids when I go to the park with them. Like at the store, people don't treat us in the same way sometimes. Like I've had incidents at stores where people, just are they treat me differently. I can sense that. So, I think that happens to us almost every day, that we experience all those microaggressions. And then something I could share is that I am very involved in the school where my kids go to. It's school in the Southwest. And it is called Ainsworth Elementary. There's a Spanish immersion program over there, and that's why we are sending our kids over there. And it's not a very diverse community. It is, and it's a very high socioeconomic status as well. So I think for kids of color, it's really hard in the community to be a part of, because I think their integration doesn't happen in the same way than for other kids that are in the neighborhood or in that socioeconomic status. So I'm working hard there in the community as part of the PTA, leading like an equity committee to ensure that the school is more, it's intentional about making sure that everybody's safe and receives all the services that they need. So that's from my personal experience.
We have a couple of other people in our group, and our time is running down. We have just like 1 or 2 minutes left, but I don't know if George or the person on the phone would like to share anything. You're welcome to do so. Okay. Well, Barbara, Gabby, Miley, thank you. Really appreciate what you've had to share. I wish we had even just a few more minutes, because my question particularly of Miley and Gabby, but of all of you, would be centered around, and this is selfish on my part, what would you want to say to me as the pastoral leader at St. Charles about moving to the next step of better welcoming of our people of color and empowering our people of color into leadership at the parish? I don't know if you have the silver bullet in 30-second response. That isn't fair, I know, but I would really welcome you to think about that and to tell me your thoughts if at another time.
A 30-second response from my side would be to keep trying to engage. I don't know if in the future, like a priest that is bilingual or bilingual, or and also more staff that is multicultural, multilingual. I think that, you know, like in schools, when kids look at the teachers and the teachers they feel the same, they feel identified with them, I think those engagements and participation happens more smoothly. So that would be a 30-second idea. And I know there's always barriers for that too, but keeping in mind that the way the providers of a service or of a, you know, in an organization, when they are already people of color or understand all those dimensions, that helps a lot.
That makes all the sense in the world. I have pressed the 60-second warning, so everyone will be coming back in just a few seconds. Any final thoughts from any of you?
For our case, we got rid of the pastor.
It
was horrible.
That you told, yes.
Yes.
Welcome back to those of you who are coming in. There's the breakout groups will officially close in 10 seconds. Wait. Welcome back, everyone. I hope your conversations were fruitful. In the few minutes that we have remaining, what I would invite you to do is one of two things, or both if you wish. We're interested in hearing the pearls of wisdom that came from your large group. And we're also interested in hearing your suggestions for what's next.
How do you know that?
For
I'm
going to mute person. Sorry. What's next for St. Charles in terms of this issue around racial equity? And think about that perhaps in terms of several categories. How could we continue to pray about this? What do we need to continue to learn about this? What particular actions should we take? And then another category that the Pastoral Council suggested was, who are we collaborating with in our neighborhood and in our community? So here's what you can do. You can unmute yourself and talk to all of us, and or go into the chat box and type your comment. What goes into the chat box will be kept and given to the racial justice team. So one or the other. I know it requires some extroverted energy to press that unmute button and talk to all of us, but I encourage you to do that. And if it gets too chaotic, well, we'll figure that out. Truls, I see you had your hand there.
Well, I just wanted to say in the group I was in, Mary Evans, she shared about a series that's going on KGW that she's involved with. Mary, would you mind sharing that with folks so they could look at that?
Yeah, on KGW News, they've been doing a year-long series on our school, the school I work at. It's called Woodlawn Elementary. It's called Inside Woodlawn. There's about 11 or 12 episodes right now, along with little short episodes. You can watch them all on YouTube by typing in Inside Woodlawn, and they are all also accessible on kgw.com. One of the things I shared, Leaf, is that the most recent episode is myself along with 3 Black male teachers talking about what is like just the current demographics of our country in the world and thoughts and how it pertains in the eyes of adults and the perception of kids.
Yeah, I've seen the video. It's outstanding.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mary.
Wow.
Somebody else want to jump in? What did you hear? What do you think needs to be said to the whole group?
I just wanted to say something that Mika, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you, Barbara.
That Mika said, talking about her appreciation of the Black Lives Matter movement, but saying that she lives it every day. And I thought, how do we continue then keeping this in front of us every day and live it every day? I just thought that was an important comment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I just want to follow that. I'm Mika. That I just wanted to take the time to say thank you to the parish for taking the time to shed light or to give time to this issue, because it's obviously important to me. As Barbara said, I live it every day. And I'm glad to see it's important to others as well.
And Mika, can you introduce us to the little one that's next to you there?
My daughter, Prier, so it's like Prier, but with a P, and she's 4. Yeah, and she's the future that I'm working for, so.
Yeah.
Hey, Leaf, this could be a bigger conversation, but I think something that's really important and looking forward for St. Charles is as the relationship continues to grow and build with De La Salle, that student voices are being brought in, because it's, you know, primarily kids of color, and they're living all of these experiences, and they'll live them in the parish community, and they may be more willing to voice feelings and concerns that maybe their families have but don't feel comfortable voicing them yet. So I think in any councils, if there's a combination of one that is those students and their voices, along with people that have historically been with St. Charles, that's a vital voice to be heard.
Yeah, thank you for that. And that echoes conversations we have had in other circles. So
Tom Ficker here. Given the fact that this year has been absolutely crazy with everything that's going on, St. Charles is moving into a new facility basically because we're having a school built next to us. This is the new St. Charles. I'm an old parishioner, but I'm looking forward to this new St. Charles. And I'm hoping really, really strongly that we can move ahead and continue to solve problems.
Thank you, Tom.
Yes, thank you, Tom.
Leaf?
Yes.
When I was on pastoral council, when I first joined St. Charles, we had 2 high school students that were part of the council. Do they not do that anymore?
Angie, at the moment, I welcome anyone's interest in serving on the pastoral council.
Yeah, because we wanted the voice of the youth to help us guide our parish. Because I know I was the leader of pastoral council for 2 years, and we used, we had John Manson's daughter was one of the girls that was on it, and I can't remember who the other one was. There was a boy and a girl both that was part of pastoral council at that time.
Leaf, this is Margaret.
Yeah, Margaret, go ahead.
Can you hear me? Okay. Yep. Last year we did have a high school student, Dia Mile Tus, on the parish council. she joined because her father, Marcial Tous, was asked to, and he consented to join the parish council. But over the year, they had family issues and she dropped out. But last fall, we were overjoyed to have her, and Leaf treated her as a member of our council. I would think we're hashing over this idea of racism in the parish council, and asking people to join the parish council may not, we certainly have to keep working on that, but maybe asking people to join those meetings, we got to work a different way, and we're looking at that. But it's a connection outside of the parish, but that doesn't mean your representatives shouldn't be those connectors to people of color in our parish. And if they don't want to come to us, maybe we need to go to them. And how that looks, I don't know. But we have work to do.
Indeed.
A lot of work.
Well said, though, Margaret. Thank you. One more thought, one more comment before we move toward our closing.
Our group, we had Mahari, this is Judy, and Mahari suggested like once a month where we visit different cultures and find out more about them from the people in our parish. And then the other one was in his country, one of the months that they do a big celebration and that he misses is the St. John's in beginning of September. And so I thought maybe we could look at not only his culture, but the culture of anyone else, and see what celebrations we could put together for those cultures. Give us even a better understanding of what they miss. You know, once you leave your country, there's so much you leave behind.
Right. Right.
We would welcome those learning about different cultures and celebrations. So I'm one for saying yes, let's do that.
Am I there?
Yes.
Yep, Tom, go ahead.
That same thought. I thought it was really cool when we would take the time to learn how to say "peace be with you" in the different languages from the different cultures in the church. I think that's something we should keep up.
Good. Yes, that's certainly something we can do. So think of our time together today as a beginning of a longer conversation. There's so much more we could have heard from Truls, so much more we could have heard from our guests in the small groups, so much more that we could hear from each other. You know that I am always anxious to hear from you, your suggestions, your considerations. So don't hesitate to communicate with me, but let's also think about what advice we would give to our racial justice team in terms of how they could proceed in terms of this work at St. Charles in the coming months. So trust me, you will hear from them as we move forward, but don't hesitate to give me and them your thoughts and suggestions. A great big thank you to Mika Lane, Mahari Retta, Berhanu Gebre, Norma Brown, Jackie Thomas, and for sharing in our small groups, and Truls for modeling for us the conversation to all of us. So thank you for that. I'm gonna go back to sharing slides, and we'll conclude with our prayer for racial justice, and then a closing song. And then we'll come back to the large group you'll unmute, or you can leave or stay, and it's, you know what to do then. So pray with me, if you will. God of justice, open our eyes to beauty and grace. Open our hearts to repent of racial attitudes, behaviors, and speech which demean others. Open our ears to the cries of those wounded by racial injustice and their passionate pleas for change. Fill us with courage that we might seek to heal wounds, build bridges, forgive and be forgiven, and establish peace and equality for all in our communities. Amen. And now our closing song, Go Make a Difference.
Go make a difference. We can make a difference. Go make a difference in the world. Go make a difference. We can make a difference. Go make a difference in the world. We are the salt of the earth, called to let the people see the love of God in you and me. We are the light of the world, not to be hidden, but be seen. Go make a difference in the world.
Go make a difference. We can make a difference. Go make a difference in the world. Go make a difference. We can make a difference. Go make a difference in the world. We are the hands of Christ reaching out to those in need. The face of God for you and to see. We are the spirit of hope. We are the voice of peace. Go make a difference in the world.
Go make a difference. We can make a difference. Go make a difference in the world. Go make a difference. We can make a difference. Go make a difference in the world. So let your love shine on. Let it shine for all to see. Go make a difference in the world. And the Spirit of Christ will be with us as we go. Go make a difference in the world.
Go make a difference. We can make a difference. Go make a difference in the world.
Go make a difference. We can make a difference. Go make a difference